What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. I am Sunny Brooks. For those that are new here, welcome. For those that are not, welcome back. Today I am going to do a story time. There's Chase, my baby. I'm going to do a story time about my spiritual awakenings. I have talked about this on my podcast, Sunny Days. If you haven't already, go check it out, Sunny Days. But I talked about this in depth, so if you want like the long version of it, go check it out. But I am going to go over my spiritual awakenings. So I have had multiple spiritual awakenings. I feel like people have more than one, but it's always like, oh, when you had a spiritual awakening or the spiritual awakening, I really don't subscribe to one. Like, I had multiple. Like, at different levels in my life, at different times in my life, I evolved to a next level spiritually based off of different awakenings, right? So if you believe you have had more than one spiritual awakening, drop it in the comments and let me know how many you think you have had, or if you haven't had one yet. But yeah, so my first spiritual awakening, I'm gonna go kind of go in order, and I have my notes here, right? So I might look. The first spiritual awakening I had to be I don't really remember, right? So I'm gonna give you an estimate. It's probably 2013 or 2014, where I left the church. When I'm saying I left the church, I left the church. I did not leave Christianity yet at this point, but I left the church. And this was a spiritual awakening for me because it was going against whatever I believed at that time. And this was the church home that I had for however many years at this point. This was not my childhood church home. I didn't grow up with a childhood church home per se. I went to church, but not like that. But this was where I was dedicated to the ministry. I was involved in everything. But when I left the church, that was my original, one of the first spiritual awakenings that I feel like was very, very big. I left the church. Well, this spiritual awakening basically, literally I had this like, well, no, that was not that one. But anyways, I literally had this feeling like this wasn't for me. Like, this church wasn't for me because the people, like how people say the religions are not bad. It is the people that make religions bad. So it was the people, it was the environment, it was the like favoritism or elitism. It was it was just a lot. It was too much. So that was like my first spiritual awakening, leaving the church and just like, okay, well, technically I still consider myself Christian, but I'm going to leave the church because this church is not like conducive to me. Like, I wasn't growing anymore. And that was really the spiritual awakening. Like, I had reached this moot point, like this point where I wasn't growing. I wasn't getting anything anymore. I just was like, I was just attending. Like, I was just going. I was just there, right? I wasn't growing anymore. So I left the church. The next spiritual awakening was leaving Christianity for me. This had to be like heart-wrenching for me because look, to this day, I knew all the Bible stories. I knew the Bible verses. I knew all the praise and worship songs. I was in church every Sunday and Wednesday and Tuesday and whatever other days. I was on the prayer calls. I was even like a head of a ministry, the youth ministry. I was teaching Sunday school. I was even preaching at one point, at different times, like on youth Sundays, I would preach on, like I was also invited to give a word at outside organizations, not quite churches, but like Christian organizations. So when I say, like, no, I'm not saying these things is what made me Christian. I'm just using those as example to explain, like, I was in Christianity. Like, I wasn't just like teeter-totter. I was involved. I was dedicated. But when this came to me, I just had this urge that there was something more. So I always had certain questions and concerns around the religion, right? Like, of course, I'm like, why Jesus don't look like me? Also, why are they using like obey your master language? Also, I don't believe in the Adam and Eve because it was like when Cain killed Abel. Abel killed Cain? Yeah, Cain killed Abel, I believe, whatever. And he was cast out to go stay with the people in, I can't think of the town, but he was cast out to go like live in this town with these people. if Adam and Eve was like the first two people and they only had Cain and Abel, then how come when one of their sons was cast out, he went to go live with other people? Where them people came from if these was the first two people? But anyways, nevertheless, I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole. What I'm just saying is there were certain things that I just did not really connect with, outside of like, there were certain things that the Bible said that I didn't believe. There were certain things within myself that was contradictory to the faith. There were certain things that, certain practices I just didn't believe in, certain words, like I wasn't worthy of love. I'm not worthy of forgiveness. I'm not worthy. And at this time, I was really going through my self-love, self-awareness, self-confidence journey. So while trying to build myself up, this religion was tearing me down, telling me I'm not worthy, but I know I needed to feel worthy, and I know I was worthy. So it was a lot of contradictions, right? And I just felt like it was not the people because I was still I left the church, and for maybe like 2 years, I was still visiting other churches. I was still a part of the religion. So it wasn't the people, it was the religion for me. And leaving Christianity was that spiritual awakening. Like, wow, this may not be for me. Yeah. And then what's next? Okay, so the next spiritual awakening that I feel like was so I have smaller moments or maybe epiphanies, but these are like those that was life-changing for me. The next thing was when I was battling with depression and anxiety, and it says, and beginning of my marriage. So this is actually when I was battling I have had a history of depression and anxiety. And at this point, I was going to therapy. So this had to be, I don't know, whatever, don't worry about it. But I was going to therapy, and my therapist at the time introduced me to mindfulness. I didn't know what mindfulness was. I'm like, wait, what? And the reason why I feel like it was a spiritual awakening, because it required me to be mindful of the things around me, be mindful of my actions, my feelings, my emotions. I just never been that mindful, and being mindful connected me, it connected my spiritual life, if that makes sense, right? It connected with my spiritual life. Also at this time, through mindfulness, I wanted to find alternative ways of healing and coping other than medication. So I looked up mindful practices and stuff. Meditation came up. I tried meditation the first time, and I sent myself through a whole panic attack, but that's another story for a different day. And that began my journey of this mindfulness, self-awareness on a spiritual level that caused me to sit with myself and put me at the center in the forefront of my spiritual journey, not put something outside of me. So it's I kind of took my power back in this way, right? I'm mindful about me. I am sitting with myself. I'm listening to myself. And this is where I also found my first crystal. And this was before Soulful Vibes was born. If you are not familiar with Soulful Vibes, my company, our company is a one-stop spiritual shop. So make sure y'all check out soulfulvibesco.com and use code SUNNY, SUNNY, capitalize everything, to save some money off. But check out Soulful Vibes Co. It is everything you would need for your spiritual journey and all of the tools and resources and things. But at this time, I did not know much about crystals. I thought it was a little colorful rock I found. This was just a place that I was okay, now I have left Christianity. Where am I? What am I doing? And this began the start of where I started to, I started to elevate, but I really started to release things that didn't serve me, and I really started to give myself permission to be me, to listen to me, to to take all of the things and power that I put outside of myself and brought it back inward. I was I can do this. I really started to just transform. This was that moment. I knew, I was something feels different. I did feel lost in the moment, but I know that the mindfulness, the therapy, the self-work at that point started to liberate me spiritually, right? Third one. Fourth one, I moved to Vegas, and during this time, I became a Reiki. I got Reiki 1, Reiki 2, and Reiki Master Teacher. If you guys didn't know, I am a Reiki Master Teacher. I got crystal healing certifications, and I also started Soulful Vibes. But this is where I dug deep into the metaphysical, right? So I dug deep into like crystal properties, chakras, meridians. I dug deep into energy healing, Reiki. Like I was like that's why I be telling people, slow your roll. Just take it a category or modality at a time, because it could be information overload. But I really was diving in head first and everything. But this was a spiritual awakening for me, because I'm like, the metaphysics, y'all mean these little rocks got power? Y'all mean that? And I had already knew, because I had worked with amethyst and rose quartz, and I had worked with the stone jet previously to moving to Vegas. But I really like dive deep. I'm like, this makes sense. This is what I know to be true. Like I have factual things that I can point back to, like things with me. I started diving deep into chakras and stuff. I started diving deep in the metaphysical, and that really made sense to me, and I could really like believe in that, because I knew those things to be true based off of my own personal journey, and not based off of something someone told me to believe, if that makes sense, right? Next big spiritual awakening in my life was when we moved to Georgia, and it says Ancestral. I remember this. This is when I began my journey with ancestral work. Like, oh my God. Like I was doing all the metaphysical things. I was in the crystals. I was in all of that. But this is when I dived deep into ancestral work. And this was mind blowing. Okay. Like my crown chakra had to be overactive, exploded, and all out. Because I was like super, like I have always been like, I am like the blackly black person. Like I have always been that. Take that as you will. But this caused me to really like who are my ancestors? Like how can I connect to them? Both of my parents are deceased. So I always have had some sort of connection with them. Like I remember telling people like, I'm gonna go tell my daddy, and they like, your daddy not here, so I don't really care. And I'm like, that's fine. Right? I know that I had certain connections with them, and I'm like, how could I like grow this? Like, how could I really, really boom? Like this had to be 2017, 2018, I believe. Probably 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. And this is where I gave my first offering of ancestor money. Like literally, this is where like the things that we carry as Soulful Vibes, this is where it came from. Like I gave my first ancestor money offering to my ancestors in like 2017. Right? Before it was whatever. Like I built my first ancestral altar in 2017, and this was not anything that like I went to like let's say a diviner, or like I went to a priestess and they said build this, or like I saw it anywhere. I literally, this was me. I don't like it came to me, and I'm like, I need to build something for them. And I'm like, it's like, I'm going to build like an altar. I'm like, I know altars because of Christianity. I'm like, it's an altar for the church. Like I go there, I speak, I like ask for forgiveness, or I ask for things. Like I know, but I need to build it inside of my home. Like I want to give them something because they like protected me. So how can I give them an offering? And I'm like, my daddy used to love cigarettes. I'm gonna go buy a pack of cigarettes and just put it on the altar. Like my granddad was a war vet. Okay, I'm gonna go buy a little war vet figurine. Like I was doing this like just off of me. There was no YouTube videos around. There was nothing about ancestral veneration, ancestor altars. Like I didn't find any of that stuff. So this was like, I really started diving deep. I remember the first time I burned ancestor money. I remember the first altar I made. I remember like this journey of just going down and connecting with my ancestors and really listen. that was like, that all was a start for something different and something new. But this was like, oh baby, I'm in this. This is what I know to be true. These people are my ancestors. Like, they share my DNA. I am who I am because of them. Like, I can believe in this. I can believe in this, right? Okay, I ain't gonna get too deep. I told y'all can go check out the podcast Sunny Days to hear more about it. But that's that. The next one, when I moved back home to Florida, and I started to work in a way, or started to build my spiritual practices that are close to my ancestors' ways. So I was doing a lot of like different metaphysical works or metaphysical things. Like, I was carrying crystals. I was, let's say, burning Palo Santo, burning incense, things like that. But I knew that my ancestors did use these things, and it belongs to us. But I knew that my ancestors did things different. I just knew. I remember when I was a little girl and my grandma was walking around the house with Florida water. I remember my grandma having different things. I'm not even gonna, like, I don't want to go too deep into it. I remember when I was a little girl, my mom took me to somebody, this lady, and I had this protection. I'm sure it was like a mojo bag is what they would call it. But I had this protection thing sewn to my like underwear. I remember certain things. And I just know that my ancestors started doing things differently. Like, they were doing things differently. So when I say I started diving deep into my ancestors' ways, I was already doing things and not even knowing that was my ancestor ways, if that makes sense. Like, I was already practicing hoodoo and conjure and root work before I even had a connection with my ancestors. Like, I was already doing that stuff. Like, I would like... Listen, I'm just gonna say I was already doing it, but I started studying, right? When I moved back home, I really started studying. Hey, buddy. I started studying more, like, not only just about my ancestors, but I started studying about my entire ancestral lineage, not just like my family, but like I studied about Black people history and Black spirituality that dated back to the motherland. Like, I started learning about Native practices, right? And as Black natives of America, what they did. So I really started just diving deep in the history of it, even though I was already practicing. But that was really a spiritual awakening for me, because I'm like, damn, not only was I already connected, but this been ours. Like, this been ours. Like, it's been mine. I don't care what nobody say. I don't care. 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 Like, I really felt like I had unlocked this another part of me, because I was already doing these things, but I had like the proof that went behind the things that I was doing and believing, right? And then I feel like I had the most recent spiritual awakening is probably like a year or two ago. Probably like 2. Basically, combining it all and not having to choose, right? Because I have my ancestral ways, right? My ancestors, some of my ancestors was of the Christian faith. My ancestors did practice root work and conjure and hoodoo and things. My background is in Christianity, but not feeling like I had to choose. Like, I am not a Christian by any means. Like, but not feeling like, oh, I couldn't worship. Worship has always been my thing. I have been a worshiper as a child, right? So feeling like detaching worship from Christianity, feeling like, oh, I can't worship because I'm not Christian. That's not true. Worship doesn't have to be associated to Christianity, or saying like, oh, I'm not praying because I'm not Christian. Like, no. So feeling like I had this awakening, like I don't have to choose. Like, if I want to wake up one day and listen to gospel music, I can listen to gospel music. Don't mean I have to believe in Christ as my Lord and Savior, right? If I wanted to get up and sing for my ancestors that gospel song, I can do that. If I wanted to also that same night use the Bible in my work, I can do that. If I also wanted to use the scripture from the Bible to protect my home and to fortify my home, I can do that. Like feeling like I can combine it all. I can use crystals in my hoodoo. I can use the Bible in my hoodoo. Like I can do all of those things and not feeling like I had to choose or was torn or not real in a certain aspect because I was practicing something different. So feeling like I take all of me and I put it in a pot and not feeling like I have to do this over here, I have to keep this over here. Like I was able to combine it and all be, make it all work for me because it was all a part of me and not disown and disassociate to certain parts of me that I no longer like connected with it, you know? So those are my spiritual awakenings. If y'all don't mind sharing some below, or if any that resonated with you, y'all let me know in the comments. And if y'all have any questions, feel free to drop them below. But until we meet again, I love you. Bye.